Hi everyone, thanks for joining today. If someone would be so kind to just let me know if you can hear and see me okay and everything's okay, and we can get started in a few minutes when a few more people joins us. My name is Michelle. I am one of the digital instructors here at DMI. And we're just going to go through a little overview today of assignment 2 part 2 so that we can give you some advice on some of the requirements and just a deeper dive into some of the elements that is needed in the second part of assignment 2. So I'm just going to admit a few more people here. Can everybody hear me okay? If someone would just be so kind to just let me know there in the chat, that would be lovely. Great, thank you. Okay, so we'll just go into today based around the fact that you've probably attended the previous webinar, which was the assignment 2 part 1 webinar. If you haven't, I'd suggest that you go watch that one and then come back here and watch the recording for this one. This recording will be available in your webinars tab within your My DMI profile, and that will be there in a few days. So I'd suggest you go back and watch the webinar part 1 of assignment 2 first if you haven't already, because you might feel confused joining this one if you haven't watched the assignment 2 part 1. Just going to admit a few more people. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. I was just saying this webinar will be ready. It will be a recorded version in a few days. If you haven't already done the first part, which is assignment 2 part 1, I recommend going back and watching that webinar first, because otherwise you feel a little bit confused in this one. So today we're just going to go through the second part. So we'll get started now in a few seconds, and I'll just share my screen with you and we'll go through an overview of what we're going to discuss today. And as always, if you've got any questions, you can just pop them in the chat and we'll go to them at the end. We will be finished up before 4 o'clock, so we'll just do a quick overview of the different sections, the second half, and you're welcome to ask questions as they come up for you, and I'll get back to you at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen and go through a look at what we're going to discuss today. Okay, so we're going to go over the assignment 2 in the second half. So previously, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, we went through the first half of the assignment 2. So we'll just do a little overview of that. And what's involved in the whole thing, just so we look back. So assignment 2, again, the word count is 5,000 words, and you've got the ability to go over by 500 words. Same thing as assignment 1. So this is just a breakdown here of the different sections. So already in assignment 2 part 1 webinar, we would have discussed your executive summary, the organizational background, the situational analysis, your audiences, and your objectives. So today we're going to have a look into the second half, which is the channels, the action plan for your marketing strategy, your budget, and how you will measure it. We're going to go through assignment 2 today, and we will bear in mind that you've already been in attendance on the previous webinar a couple of weeks ago, which was assignment 2 part 1. So today we're going to go into more detail on assignment 2 part 2. So you have already done assignment 1, obviously, and you're going to use the same structure for assignment 2 as you did in assignment 1. So bear in mind that the two should flow together. So any research that you've carried out in assignment 1 is going to be relevant to make your decisions going into assignment 2 and building your digital strategy. So in the previous webinar, we would have went into more detail for the first half of assignment 2, which would have been your executive summary, the organizational background, your analysis, your target audiences, and your objectives. So we would have covered those elements in the assignment 2 part 1 stage a couple of weeks back. So if you haven't already watched that webinar recording or attended that webinar, I recommend you just go back and watch that one first, because you'll feel a little bit confused with this one if you haven't. Otherwise, you're welcome to stay, but if you haven't attended the previous one, you can just pop off and come back and use the recording to check back in for this one. So we're going to go through a look at each of the sections and what's required. As we always say, go back to your assignment guideline document, because it's pretty much your Bible for what's expected of you. So if you have any confusion around any of the requirements in any of the sections, we recommend you either go back to the guidelines or come and pop us a message in the support hub, and we'll detail on a more specific level to your company if you need any further guidance. But always go back to the assignment guidelines document that's in your MyDMI profile, and ensure that you're checking off that you're meeting all the requirements for each of the sections. Something else to bear in mind is that you want to create a flow between assignment 1 and assignment 2. You also want to create a flow between all of the sections. So something that crops up now and again where students lose marks is that they maybe go into building elements of their strategy, but they don't connect. There's no flow between each one of the sections. So if you can bear in mind that you want to justify all elements of your strategy and create a nice flow between them all so that they all work in sync. And again, using your research to make your decisions from assignment 1 into assignment 2. So that's something to keep bearing in mind as you go along. So today we're going to look into the second half of the assignment. So we're going to get started with the channels and an overview of what's required. So when you're going in to build your marketing strategy now in assignment 2, you're really going to have to reflect back on what you did in assignment 1. And also you might have already completed some of the sections in assignment 2 based on the first half webinar, where you would have looked into your objectives and an analysis of your competitors, your company and your audience. So if you've already done that, make sure that you're using that research and using that information that you've gathered to make informed decisions into now building your strategy in this section. So something to think about before you start, always when you're building a strategy, you obviously always want to go back and look at why you're doing it. So a valuable task before you start making any decisions or planning out your content or your channel decisions for the assignment is to just reflect back on why you're doing it. What are your objectives? Make sure they're really well defined and keep kind of focusing back to those to make sure that you're meeting them. Think about how you'll measure them. So think about the people in the team. So who's going to take action? That's something that you're going to have to actually specify in this assignment. So who's going to take action around measuring your if your objectives are being met by the strategy, if it's effective, who's going to be involved. You're really going to have to plan and detail all of that out within this assignment and show who's going to be involved in delivering the strategy. So in terms of content planning, so you're going to lay out a really well-defined content plan. So you're going to have to think first about what your messaging is, who you're going to be targeting, again, referring back to your work around your target audiences in assignment 1 and assignment 2, so that it flows on from your findings and your objectives and your plan and your reasonings are very clear as to why and how and who. So you're going to look at what are your outcomes. So really plan out what your desired outcomes are from the strategy. What are your calls to action? What kind of lead generation elements do you want to look at? Do you want to increase sales? Do you want to increase brand awareness? Do you want to increase visits to your website? What is your objectives overall? Is it to sell more of a certain product or service? Is it to generate more leads from a specific target audience? Really think in depth about what you want to achieve with this strategy, and that will then help you going forward to make really informed decisions, and you can refer back to them then in the measuring stage as well. Something also to think about is maybe do an audit on what's already been done. So a lot of you might be just starting to work with a company for the reason of doing this assignment, or you may already be employed there. Some of you might be doing this on your own businesses. So if you really just think about what's been done already, do a little audit, and you can obviously show the outcome from the audit in your appendices, which will give strength again on why you're making your decisions. You could show measurements of analytics, ad spend, stuff like that in your appendices. And if you need any help around communicating that, you can just come back to us in the support chat and we can give you some ideas for your specific assignment, your company, and the focus that you're taking yourself. So when you think about what's been done already and how well then you're moving forward with a really a clear objective and a clear plan, taking into account what's already worked and what doesn't, and building on from that. So that makes a really effective stance from the beginning. You might want to showcase your reporting from what you've already looked at. All of that should go into your appendices, any research that you've done in the company and what they've done to date, anything around the audiences and content. You can drop screenshots of previous ads and things like that into your appendices as well. And then really think about your plan overall before you start mapping this out. So who's involved, how long it's going to continue for, what channels you're going to bring into this plan specifically, and bear in mind that this is only like a 6 to 9 month timeline, so you don't need to think ahead a year, 2 years, 3 years ahead. You can really just get really defined on what you're going to do for the next 6 to 9 months, and that's what we want to see in your assignment. Okay, so the channels section is what we're going to look at first. So it's 30% of the marks, so it's quite a big part of the assignment. We're going to just go through and look at the different elements that's required. So if you couldn't hear me previously, I was just saying to justify everything, justify your choices here in this section. It's really important, and ensure that they flow together in a nice integrated approach. So that they flow with the research about your audience and your competitors, and that you can really visually justify here why you're making your choices in these channels. So you're going to look at 4 to 5 channels. Around 4 is fine. You can go 5 if you wish. And just bear in mind that you're really required to justify why you're using each one. So bear in mind that you might want to go back to look at what you find out about your competitors. So maybe they're stronger in different channels than you're putting your efforts into. Maybe you've done an audit on their website, their channels, their ads, and you found out some really strong findings that will help you move forward with a plan to focus your efforts on those channels. Your audiences might be spending more time somewhere else than what you've already been putting your budget into, or your efforts, your content efforts. So make informed decisions on those things that you found out already about your audience and your competitors, and move forward with your decisions, justifying them why you're choosing these channels. So for example, you might want to dependent, obviously everyone's going to be different, and this is one of the questions that keep coming into us, is that people aren't sure which channels are relevant for their business, or they might think that they should be choosing channels when they're not relevant for their business. So again, really look at what is realistic for your company. Are you smaller and you might have a smaller budget? You might only be able to focus on your website and social media, whereas another person might be focusing on maybe Google Ads, a larger spend on video marketing, things like that. So we'll look at the elements that you can bring in, and obviously if you have any individual questions, you can come back to us and check in with us at any time. I'm just going to check in. Can you guys hear me okay? Is it any better? Is it any better this time around? Just want to make sure I'm not talking to no one here. Okay, great. Thanks. Just keep me posted if I'm cutting out, because I don't want to waste your time. So For the channels, you've got to make sure that your budget is aligning with your choices. So be realistic, obviously, when you're choosing your channels about what the company can afford to spend. And there's no point in saying that you're going to go and develop an app, or you're going to go ahead and spend a massive budget on Google Ads when you haven't yet focused on anything organic on social media or web traffic or content planning, maybe content creation, things that will be more effective for a lower spend if you're a smaller business. So don't just go in there and start throwing money at ads when you haven't actually done any of the more organic efforts. So really think about that, and because the assessor's going to look at how realistic your plan is. So really think about that. Diana, I can talk to you about that yourself after. You're asking, you don't have any competitors, so that's going to be a problem. I think everyone has competitors of some sort, even if they're not in your direct industry with the same type of service. You know, there will be other places where your target audience are spending time or budget. So Diana, I'll, if you want to message me on support after, I'll come back to you with some answers around that, and we'll come up with some ideas how you can communicate that in the best way. And we'll come back to your questions at the end. So you're going to go into justifying what channels you pick. So pick 4 to 5 channels, justify why. Then you're going to create a plan focused on these. You're going to use an integrated approach, which is what you see there is integrate them. So you might be looking at, maybe you're going to have more of a focus on your offline marketing as well. So obviously offline marketing can be a part of this, but you really just think about how you're going to use it to drive people to your online channels. So you might be looking at an offline ad, display marketing or print marketing, and you're going to have to detail how you're going to drive people from that onto your online channels. So for example, you might be focusing on driving people, driving engagement on your social media, growing your followers on social media through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, maybe local Google business, things like that. You could look at video marketing on YouTube, your LinkedIn strategy. There's a number of channels that you can look at, but dependent again on how advanced your marketing is for the company. So you're going to think about how will they work in sync. So that's the integrated approach, is how will you drive people from your offline to your social media? How will you drive people from your social media to your website? How will you drive people from your website to your email list? How will you drive people from your email list to sign up, to book, to buy? Think about all of those elements and how they will work in sync to create an integrated approach across all the channels. Don't just dump the channels in there specifically separately and really disconnect it. You know, you might have a plan for Facebook, and then you have a plan for YouTube, you have a plan for your website, but none of those link in together and the strategy isn't working in sync. So that's what it means by create an integrated approach. So there's lots of ways that you can communicate this, but one of the ways that we ask you to do this in the assignment is through the use of a race model. So we'll go through what that is and how you can communicate it, and we'll tell you where you can find the graphics to use and the tables and things like that. Again, in some of the other webinars, we talked about using Canva, which is a really nice tool. It's free, and you can find all your graphics and tables in there. You can create them really nice. It really depends how much of a design approach do you want to add in. So maybe you're going to create examples, screenshots, mock-ups of ads, ad copy, web landing pages, things like that. You could go in and create all of these in Canva, or with some tools that we're going to show you, and you could drop them into your appendices. So the more examples that you have of your strategy and your design, is the better. Obviously, but the more strength you have in your references and appendices, the more the assessor can see what your plan is and really assess it, if it's effective and if you're meeting the requirements. So the race model. So what is it? So you're looking at Again, you're going to go back to the assignment guidelines and see if you're meeting all of the requirements in all points of the assignment. This is one of the models that we ask you to use. It just effectively shows you how to communicate the different elements of your marketing strategy. I'm just going to get this out of the way so you can see it. So what is the RACE model? So it's got 4 elements to it. So it's got reach, act, convert, and engage. So the reach element is obviously the reach is aimed at building awareness, maybe visibility of your brand, maximizing reach of your ad campaigns, your social media reach, your different video marketing strategy. Maybe it's increasing growing your audience, things like that. So you can really bring in a lot of elements in there, and we'll show you some examples on how to do so. Then the ACT element it's short for interact. So it's all about generating online leads that can then be taken and nurtured through the path to purchase or persuasion or booking or growth or whatever it is, whatever the next action is in your customer journey. Convert. The convert stage in the marketing funnel is simply aimed at the conversion. So what is you need to think here, what's your desired outcome? What do you want to convert people to do? Do you want to convert them to sales? Is it online or offline? Do you want to convert them to follow you? Do you want to convert them to book an appointment or buy a product or sign up to an email letter or a database? What do you want to convert your audience to do? So really think about that element in the framework in the marketing funnel within your strategy. The 4th element in the RACE model is engage. So this is aimed at thinking about the long-term engagement. How will you engage your customer long-term? How will you take your audiences and nurture them? Turn them into ambassadors for your business, build loyalty, and increase the lifetime value of the customer. So that's something to take into account there. Obviously, if you have questions, if you haven't seen this model before, we're always here on support, so you can just come to us individually and we'll help you through the best ways to communicate it for your assignment. So here's an example of how you could lay it out. So obviously this will be in the slide, so you can go yourself and look into it in a bit more depth and come back to us if you need any help specifically, because there's a lot of information here to take in. So it's really going to depend again on the elements of your assignment individually, your audience and your company and all of that. So you might need individual advice. So we're happy to help you with that at any stage. So this is just an example of how someone has laid this out. So you can see there on the left, in the life cycle stage, you have the reach, act, convert, and engage elements of the funnel. And then you're going to pop your objectives into those different sections. So that's the example of the channels framework again in another manner. So this is somebody who's done this in their assignment and they've been great at well. So this is just an example of the section. I'll come back to your questions at the end, guys, okay? And I hope you don't mind, you keep asking them and I'll come back to them at the end. So this is just an example of someone who was graded well for this section. So we'll put more of these in the classroom forum so you can see them. So somebody here has popped their objectives in and they were graded well for this layout. So this is kind of what the assessors are looking for. You can see there that they have their objectives and the strategies they're going to take to work towards them, and then they've got clear KPIs so they can put in there how are they going to measure their objectives and if they're being met. Yeah, no problem, Pansy. I will show you where the classroom forum is. That's no problem. So again, if you need any help with your individual assignments and your own objectives and you need them clarified or anything like that, just pop them over to us in chat in the support hub and we'll have a wee look and we can give you advice. So one of the elements you're required to cover within the channels section of the assignment is to create some mock-ups. So you want to be able to show, you know, what your ad copy is going to be, what plan you have around for content. Use these tools here, the links are in the slides, to pop on and recreate some graphics or some ad copy around mock-up examples for how will your Facebook ads look, what text are you going to put in, what's the call to action going to be, what links are you going to use, generate an idea around content, maybe your graphics for the ads. You can refer back to all of these in your appendices, and these are some good tools to really easily create these mock-up examples. So go in and play around with them for your individual plans, and again, come back to us if you need some support, but these are all clickable within the slides. So moving on to the next section is your action plan. So you're going to choose your channels, you're going to define them, you're going to justify them, why you chose them, who you're targeting on them, what is your plan, what's your objectives through those channels, and what actions are you going to take. So then this, moving into the next section, this is 10% of the marks, and you're going to move in and do an action plan. Now in this section, there's requirements around how you communicate it. So we ask that you communicate these elements through a Gantt chart and an editorial calendar. So we have some examples here within these slides, but again, if you haven't done these before, you're totally welcome to come to us in the chat and the support at any stage, and we will walk you through how to lay out your Gantt chart or your editorial calendar and give you a nice idea of what you can include. So there is some milestones that you are required to include here. So for example, you can put, you're required to put your Gantt chart and your editorial calendar within the main body of your assignment. But some, if you like to have more detail and go into another level of planning and graphics detail in the Gantt charts and the editorial calendar, so you're welcome to refer off to your appendices for these. So a nice way to do it is just have a really clearly defined one in the body, and then you can pop in that you can say refer to appendices for a more detailed version. So within the Gantt chart, if you haven't used one before, again, you can do these in Canva, or we have some of these in the DMI platform, which are linked to. And if you need to find anything around that or any advice, just come to us. But you're required to show key milestones in your campaign in the Gantt chart. So in this action section, you're going to show what are the key action milestones in the campaign. So you're going to be really specific about who is involved, who does what and when, what dates by and for how long, and so that you can really showcase the plan of action. And then in the measuring stage, you can go and measure them, and you know who to measure it with, you know who's responsible for that task, and you can really clearly show either just also in the assignment, but also within the company. If you're actually going to press go on this strategy, then you're going to want to show and report back to your boss or other departments. So show the resources required. Think about the financial side of it. You don't have to outline your budget here in this action plan. You'll do that in the next section, but just think about the financial need, and think about the staff. Who will you need? Will you need to outsource anything? So maybe you don't have the skills to take action on some of the elements in your strategy yourself. So here is where you're going to detail if you're going to outsource things to maybe to a web designer or someone who's more skilled in Facebook ads or Google ads, or maybe you might need someone to create videos. You might need somebody to create newsletters for you or create graphics. So this is where you're going to be really specific and showcase your action plan. Again, going back to your objectives, you're going to go back and really think about what's going to be included. Yes, Alexandra, so you're asking for should you put a simple Gantt chart and calendar in the main body? Yes, definitely, that's what I just said. So you should put a really clear structured version of it in the body, but then you can pop a more detailed and elaborate version off into the appendices. So the editorial calendar, again, we're going to give you an example of that, but within the editorial calendar, you're really going to think about your content. Who will generate it? What platforms will you distribute it out on? Will you use a scheduling platform? Who will be responsible for delivering it? Look at the messaging. You're going to look at the content, the graphics. Will it have video elements? Will it have downloadable elements? You need to really plan all those out and communicate what they are and the format of it. So you're going to do that in your action plan. And yeah, that's a really small section. That's 10%. It's 525 words. So within this, you're really using screenshots. You're going to use your tables and your charts to communicate. And again, refer off to the more elaborate version in the appendices. So something to think about there when you're doing that is you might want to plan out separately before you actually start creating your graphics around who's involved and what skills they have. So you might want to think about what skills is in the company and what capacity is there to outsource to people who might have extra skills that you need, such as design or web or marketing, ads, that kind of thing. And you really need to communicate that here within your charts. So there is some elements of what you're required to showcase within the Gantt chart. These are a breakdown of this, and again, they're available in the slides. So when you click through to these, you can see the templates that you can use. So they're really simple. You're just going to pop in there and put in the task. You're going to detail out what your list of tasks are over the set months. You're going to assign it to somebody. You're going to break down what months it's relevant for. How long will it be relevant for? Maybe it's going to happen on a weekly basis, and you're going to pop it in there every week. If so, for example, somebody might have to generate social media graphics every Monday. You're going to pop that in. You're going to showcase who's going to do it. Someone might have to do a website review of the sales every week. You're going to pop that in there. Somebody might need to upload new products to the website every week. Somebody might need to be responsible for creating video once a month. You're going to pop that in there if that's one of your tasks. So you're going to think about all the tasks that's relevant to your objectives. So you have your top level objective, and then you have all your tasks that's involved to meet those objectives. So really plan them out and really detail them really specifically. And you're going to do that within the Gantt chart. So an example of how the Gantt chart should look, again, this is quite small here, but we'll drop this in the classroom forum so you can see it in more detail. So you've got your different channels. You're going to detail the tasks relevant to each channel. You're going to put in the dates and who's responsible for it and what dates it's relevant for, so that you and your team can pop on, if you are making this a real strategy, that everyone can pop on and see what their responsibilities are, and you can monitor if it's being done or not. And it's just to showcase to the assessor that you really understand the potential of each channel, what elements can be best used to communicate to your audience that you've done research into, and to really grow around what research you've done on your competitors also, that you're taking into account your decision making around those elements, and again flowing back to assignment 1 and early assignment 2 research, so that you're creating a nice flow between all your decision making processes. So you're going to communicate that in your action plan. Then the editorial calendar, again, you're going to pop this in the body of the assignment. So some of the things that you're required to check off here, also you can add more in, but this is some of the things that you're actually required to meet. So you're going to have to put in the format. So think about the content, what's going into your plan, what format is it? Is it blog content, video content, graphics, downloadable elements? You need to look at the topics and what channel it's going on, who's going to be responsible for creating it, and when it's going to be created, so that your tasks are measurable. So make sure that you've got time in there and times for distribution. So give yourself goals when it's going to be created and when it's going to be delivered, and really communicate those clearly in there. And think about who they're for. So you might create different content for one audience and different content for another, and you might focus on one channel for one audience and one for another, depending on, again, your findings and your research, where your audience spends their time. You're going to make these decisions and you're going to communicate them within the editorial calendar. So we have loads of examples of these that we can give you, and again, come to us in the chat and we can give you ideas. Something to bear in mind here is you don't have to go into all the details of your posts. You know, what's the text going to be? What's the links going to be? You can just create some mock-ups. Maybe you might want to bunch it into campaigns and communicate it through campaigns. For example, map out your video campaign, the dates, the channels, the focus, the audience, and then pop in some nice mock-ups into your appendices, and that will really help you communicate your plan. So here's an example of a content calendar that you can use. Also, we have some nice content calendars within the membership platform that you can pop in and edit. Again, there's some in Canva that you can pop in and edit, so really easy ways to do so. I would plan it out first in paper and then pop it in nicely into your graphics in the body of your assignment, and then refer off to them in your appendices. So you can see here it's grouped by campaign, who will create the content, what target audience is it generated for, what channels will it focus on, what's the format of the content. So is it video, is it display ads, is it email content? Really get specific into each plan for each section and communicate it here in this one graphic. It's a really nice way to see an overview of what your plan is for the next 6 to 9 months. And also you really have to give yourself dates so that you can measure it, so anyone can pop in here and see if it's being met or not. Here's a more detailed version of a calendar. So that's really going into the different elements of the website, the social media, organic campaigns, the paid campaigns, and the email and advertising activities. So you can see there, again, it's just showcasing a bit more detail, and you're welcome to go into as much detail as you want, as long as you take off the elements in the assignment guidelines. So one of the main factors within your planning is your budget. So you really need to think about what's realistic. Budgets can be communicated differently across the board. Some of the smaller businesses might be given a specific budget to work back from. So your boss or the company might tell you, okay, we've got €1,000 a month to spend. So you need to work back from that. What elements can you afford to spend and invest in? Others might have a larger budget for ads, maybe outsourcing for content creation, display advertising, print advertising, website upgrades. There's so many elements that you can bring in. You really need to think about what's available as a budget and communicate that, so that you're then given a justification that's realistic of what spend is available and what you can allocate across your channels. So if you're using ballpark figures, if your company's not willing to give you the exact figures, then you really need to state how you calculated them. So you could look at what they spent in the past, how effective it was, what the desired outcome is, and really calculate what spend is needed, and use that within your assignment. And again, if you need help around that, just come back to us individually. We'll help you plan that out. You're required to show a weekly or monthly breakdown, and break it down per channel, and also break it down per campaign, per format if you wish, maybe per person, if you've got different people working. So you might have a videographer, you might have an advertising specialist, you might have a web designer involved. You're going to really have to break down your budget across all of those, and then showcase what is your ad spend, and what is your design spend, and what is your website maintenance spend, things like that. Take it all into account and showcase it within your budget. There's a template here that you can click on within the slides, so you can go in, play around with that. If you need any help, come back to us. But it's going to be really simple. Once you plan out actually what budget is available, it'll show you how to calculate the figures, why you're going to spend more in certain areas and less in certain areas. And again, you're going back to justifying your decisions on your research to your channels, your audience, and your competitors. So here's a way to calculate some elements in your budget. Again, this is a lot of information for you to take in, so you're going to have to go individually and really look into this and how it's relevant to your own campaigns and your own plans, because everyone will vary. So ensure here that you're really implementing a budget for each of the channels that you've discussed in the previous section that relates to the audiences that you've also discussed in the section before that. So you really, again, need a flow, and you need to refer back, and you need to make sure that all of your sections relate back to the other. Don't just go off and create a budget that's not relatable to your channels. So you really need to showcase how they all work together. Again, there's some details of what costs you should be looking at. So you could be bringing into account your email costs, maybe your software costs, your website development updates, your SEO needs, what your content creation budget is. Are you going to do it in-house? Are you going to outsource it? And then you can use these calculations to show what the return on investment will be. So again, you need to go through this in detail and satisfy this section in the assignment. This marks allocation is 8%. It's really a section where you're going to show that you've really thought about the available budget, how you're going to spend it efficiently, and what the return on investment is going to be. So you need to showcase and justify why you're choosing to spend it in certain areas than others, and showcase that you understand how you're going to get a return for that investment. So these templates that you can click through here in the slide will help you plan that out. So here's an example of how someone has communicated their budget plan. So this is a really detailed one. You might have less elements in yours. Again, you're going to put it out per section, so per campaign and per channel and per month or per week. So whatever way yours is working. And this person here has decided to showcase the spend on the digital tools as well. So you might need to pay for software and things like that. So you're going to pop those all in there. Those templates are clickable within the slides, and you can go in and come back to us at any stage as you move forward. You're going to have to also measure your assignments. So measure the create a plan for measuring. So how are you going to measure your objectives? How are you going to measure how each of the channels worked? What impact did it have? What KPIs are you actually going to measure? How will you communicate the measurements? So what data will you use? What analytics will you look into? So you really need to communicate that as well. So again, there's templates here that you can click through to and use those. And this is a nice area where you could create some graphics, you know, take some screenshots of your dashboards within your social media, within your website, and take some screenshots, and then you can edit them and add kind of a plan for reporting back and how you're going to measure the detail from each campaign, each channel, each one of the tools. And you're also going to outline who's responsible for it, who's responsible for reporting and monitoring. So you're going to have to go individually and work through these requirements. They're in the slides, so just tick them off. Any that are confusing to you, come back to us and we're happy to help. So again, you can go in here and do some secondary research. So you might want to look at what is the kind of industry measurements, you know, what should you be benchmarking your measurements against? And we've popped some links in here where you can see things on like open rates and emails and Google Ad benchmarks, things like that, social media engagement. You are going to have to choose the elements within the measurement that you need for your individual plan. So some people will be looking at web visits, at click-through rates, at organic traffic. Others will be just looking at follows on their Facebook, engagement on their social ads, engagement on their social media posts. It really depends how advanced your plan is. So again, go in here and make sure you're satisfying all of these elements, and then come back to us and ask us if you need any help for your individual plan. So again, you're going to go back to your objectives and measure, have you met them, success and failure, how you will measure them, how you will decide on if they're being met or not, and really outline how you're going to do that, make the plan. So this is just an example of how some people have modeled their reporting. They're on the measurement section of the assignment, how they're going to show what analytics is important and what areas of measurement they're going to look at. So you could screenshot that you're going to look at your Facebook engagement. You might be looking at your video views. You might be looking at your email open rates, your click-through rates in your ads. You might be looking at your web speed, your web visits, organic and paid, and where they're going, what pages they're clicking to, things like that. So this is where you're going to really detail how you're going to measure the objectives that you set earlier in the assignment and showcase that you understand how to kind of look back and see if your plan is working and how will you amend it going forward into the next stage for strategy if you are actually press and go on the digital strategy within the business. So this is a really valuable tool for you in your assignment, but also in real life in your company. The analytics and the measurement of your campaigns is so important because it allows you to understand what worked and what didn't, and if your objectives were effective, if your spend was effective, and really look at the processes involved, and then go into the next strategy more informed and amend things to create new decisions based on data. So this is a really important part of the assignment to showcase that you know how to do that. And for somebody, if you haven't worked in digital before, you might not know where to find these elements. So again, come to us in the support if you need any help on an individual basis that way. So again, we won't go into the references and appendices in detail because we did that in assignment 1. And again, in the earlier section of the assignment, you will know how to lay out the assignment. But as always, if you've got any queries around that, we're here to help. There is a good site called Cite for Me. So if you're having issues around your referencing and how to lay it out, your bibliographies and things like that, you can go to the Cite for Me. And that will help you know what information to include. But again, we're going to take some sections that have been graded well by the assessors and we're going to upload them for you guys to have a look at. And you can really look at them on an individual basis and see what you understand and what you don't, and what the assessors expect and what they were appreciative for. And we can help you on an individual basis if you need any more help around that. But for now, that's just an overview of the sections that you should look at to satisfy the guidelines. And again, if you keep going back to the guidelines, then you'll be kept on track. Make sure you're meeting all of the elements detailed in the guidelines. They're very detailed. They ensure that you're meeting what's required of you, and obviously you can add in as much detail then from that. But please just keep going back to those like the Bible. And if you need any help, we're always here. So we will be here in the support. We always get back to you within 2 days maximum. Just pop us any questions. We're here to help you. So I know there's a lot of information in this section and you might need more help with figuring out some elements depending on your digital skills. So we're here to help you if you need anything. Has anyone got any questions? Yes, Pansy, we're going to upload all the different sections. We just need to extract the sensitive data out because obviously we're not going to share your company data with anybody. We need to just block that out from the examples and we're going to upload them then for you all to see. We've been working on that for a little while because we have to go and grab some of the best marked assignments and just make sure that there's no sensitive data in there. We don't want to communicate anybody else's data to you for that reason. So we're just working on blocking anything out that shouldn't be there, and we're going to show you how to find those. So we'll email you as a group and let you know when they're up in the Student Hub, and you'll get a wee notification then when to go look. Diana, there is, this is the last assignment for assignment 2 webinar, but obviously come to us on a personal basis and we can arrange a call with you one-to-one. So like if you need some time one-to-one, we're happy to do that and go through some elements that you're struggling with. I hope that's okay. Just pop us a support chat. So there's another webinar booked in now after this. I don't want to hold anybody up if anyone's going on to the one at 4 o'clock. Some from a different group might be attending both. So I'm just going to pop off now and I'll come back to you. Any individual requirements that you need, come to us in the support tab within your My DMI profile and we'll help you with everything you need. Don't be scared to ask any questions. Nothing is silly. Yeah, Pansy, if you need feedback on your survey, certainly come back and pop them over to me in the chat in the support hub. I'm happy to give you advice. Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, thanks for your time today, everyone. And I'm sorry if the reception was bad. It just can't be helped. The lovely tech gremlins let us down when we need. And my name's actually Michelle. I know there's Dara's coming up here on the Zoom, but this is my colleague Dara's Zoom account. So if you want to reach out to me in the support, myself, Michelle, or my colleague Dara are here to support you. Thanks, Alexander. Okay, have a nice evening, everybody, and we'll talk to you in the support hub if you need us. Yeah, just submit a ticket, Pansy. That's correct. I'll actually go reach out to you now because I've spoke to you before. Okay, I'll pop you a wee message. You can just reply. Okay, thanks for attending and best of luck with your work, and we're here if you need us. You're welcome. Thank you.